Welcome to Out of Your Mind, near-death and out-of-body journeys, inspiring and uplifting conversations with those who have glimpsed beyond the veil. Get out of your mind and into your potentiality with your host, clinical hypnotherapist, biofield therapist, Reiki sage master, and death doula, Anjii Bryers.
There is an amazing band of women who travel America investigating paranormal activity. Our guest tonight is Kris Sumner from this group, and they are called the Soulsisters. She's going to share with us some insight into the work that they do and things that they've discovered in their journeys. She's also here to share with us a more personal experience of her grandmother passing over. And it's just so beautiful. And you know what? It answers so many questions that are asked by clients of mine and probably thousands of people around the world. People carry an enormous amount of guilt around death. You know, guilt like, if I'd left the hospital later to have that shower, my mother wouldn't have died alone. If somebody else had driven the car, if I'd stayed home instead of going to that function, I would have seen it happening and been able to get help. All of these questions and more are answered tonight. So please sit back, make a nice coffee or a glass of wine, and enjoy the conversation. So you are a paranormal investigator, and you have a group of 5 girls, all experts, and you travel the country investigating phenomena for corporations, private people, houses, and all that sort of thing, and you remove them from the property. Is that correct?
No, ma'am. The first part is correct. Yes, ma'am. We're an all-female group made up of myself, my twin sister, our younger sister, and then 2 female family friends. And what also makes us unique is we all hold advanced degrees. So I've got a PhD, my twin has a PhD, we've got 2 lawyers on the team, and a master's degree holder. So we actually come at this with a very research-minded perspective and a very academic perspective. And so we'll go to these locations, whether they're commercial locations such as, you know, Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary or Villisca Axe Murder House, those what we call commercial locations that actually cater to paranormal investigators. We'll go and investigate those locations to build our portfolio of unexplained phenomena. And then we will also go and investigate private residences or businesses that call us because they think that they have something spiritual or paranormal going on in their house and they want validation of that. However, we don't remove spirits. That's not really what we do or profess to do. None of us are mediums. None of us, you know, we don't hold seances or anything like that. We're just there to validate and to prove that something's going on that's unexplainable, that we have no valid explanation for. If a homeowner or a business owner wants something removed, then we have a priest or a demonologist or somebody like that on standby that we will call to assist with that case.
All right, beautiful. And so when you do investigate these, what have you come to the conclusion that perhaps they are, or do you just sort of like, oh, I don't know, it's just something that's there, and all we are showing is the awareness that it is there?
Personally, what I've come away with this, and we've been doing this since 2013, what I've come away with this is, first, we're made up of energy. And if you subscribe to the theory that energy cannot be created or destroyed, then we have to go somewhere. Our essence, our being moves on to something else. We just don't cease to be. And then I do believe that there's 3 reasons why a spirit or an essence of a person would remain closer to earth or earthbound, I'll call it that. The first one is they have unfinished business. So there's something that they needed to accomplish or something that needs to be accomplished before they can ascend to whatever's next. The second one is they're stuck. They know that they're deceased, but they can't find their way to whatever's next. We find that a lot with children. I believe that children are looking for something a little bit different, and that they don't know how to move on to that next level. And then the third is fear or retribution of what's going to happen next because of the life they lived on Earth. And I think those are the spirits that we're communicating with in jails or prisons. So those people who didn't have the greatest of lives on Earth, you know, they're happy to stay in the prisons or the cells or the insane asylums where they were at, rather than face whatever's next. If there is anything to face, rather than face that, they're willing to stay where they're at.
Wow, that's incredible. So this really opens up a couple of points. Do you think that it is key to leaving here that number one, you tidy up your backyard, make sure that you've completed everything? Because I know, for example, my grandmother worked with a lot of dying people, and when I was young, she said to me, one thing that you need to do is always at the end of the day have everything finished just in case it's your last day. And she said that what held people out that she was holding as they died, what always held them out was unfinished business, fights with sisters that have been not speaking for 20 years because someone stole a hairbrush and she said, just always make sure you can go to sleep with a clear mind, because if you have to go, then it's a lot easier.
And I do believe that I believe that's a valid philosophy. Absolutely. I do believe that those kind of angst, if you will, that you hang on to will or do have the ability to follow you into whatever's next. For me, I think a lot of the unfinished business does come back to personal relationships, or that they're waiting for somebody. So a case in point, I do believe that my granddaddy, he passed in 1986. I believe that he was waiting for my grandmother, who ended up passing in 2016. So I believe that wait was his unfinished business. And then once she passed, they met up together and they both ascended to whatever's next. So I'm not going to go looking for Nana and Granddaddy, because I don't believe that they're ghosts. And so that's what I really mean by unfinished business, that wait for something to happen, or, for something to get fulfilled so you can ascend.
Right. And so we're going to go into that story deeper later, because it's incredible. And let's have a look at this third thing that you brought up here about children. So a lot of children are a phenomena that people are experiencing. And you were saying that it is that they don't know where to go.
And that's my belief, based on the children that we've interacted with, the spirits of children that we've interacted with. So, for example, we were investigating the Hales Bar Dam, which is in the state of Tennessee, and this was a dam that had a series of tunnels underneath it. And during the 1950s, there was an accident, and some school children were killed in those tunnels. And so when we investigated, again, we're an all-female team, so there's no children and there's no men on our team. So when we were investigating, we had some voice recorders during that investigation. And one of the investigators said, "Why are you still here? Why haven't you moved on?" And we captured a child's voice saying, "I can't, I'm stuck." And so for me, I believe that those children, they don't really know what to do next or how to get to that next level, because if in my mind, if you were tragic enough to have died young like that, then you may not know what to look for, or really how to ascend, what that looks like. So I believe that they will get there at some point, but for right now, the spirits that we're communicating with, they just don't know the way.
And what would be your fix for that, for like people that have children here, so that this doesn't happen to them?
Well, personally, like I said, we don't do that, but we have people like priests that can go in and bless the area, or mediums that we can call to assist those people that can guide them into the light. For me, I'm just not versed or trained in how to do that. Not that I don't believe it can be done, but I do believe it can be done, but that's not in my wheelhouse. So we have people that we know that can go into a location and talk them through that transition, how to move on to the next level.
So if we were sitting here with a family with a child that's, for example, terminal, what would be your guidance to them? Because, if they're afraid, like, oh my God, what if my child dies and it's walking the hall of the hospital for, centuries?
Well, the first thing I would say, it's very easy for me to give lip service to say, don't be afraid. But, and obviously everybody has that fear of death. We don't know what's happened. As Shakespeare said, it's that undiscovered country. But what we've experienced is there is something after this. Majority of people, when they pass, I firmly believe their spirit ascends to what's next. As I said before, I'm a Christian, so I believe we're going to call that realm heaven. I believe you ascend to that. And I don't believe you do it alone. I believe you have a guide, whether it be an angel or somebody that has come before or that has died before you, that you knew and you can recognize. They're there to guide you. So while it's a very scary proposition to say, you know, I don't know what's coming next, in my mind, in my belief system believes that there is somebody who will be there to greet you and move on with you. So if you're a parent who is facing that and you have a child, you know, talk through it with them and say, you know, there will be somebody there waiting for you. You know, we will be behind you. You know, like I said, it is a very scary thing to face. I've never personally faced that with a child, but you know, that would be my advice.
And so have you, when you've done an investigation on a place and then you've brought a priest in, have you actually measured, you know, while that process is going on, have you measured, you know, as he's removing the energy that's there, have you measured it change as that happens, or
well, that's a very interesting question. We were on an investigation out in Colorado, and there was reports, we were in a building, and there's reports that there was a spirit there. And so we had done the investigation and the medium came. And so we were filming in, none of our cameras had night vision. So when we're filming, all you see is darkness. But you can hear our voices, and the medium was saying, it's okay, you can go into the light, you can move on. And and in that moment, the camera, we didn't see it, but the camera captured a flash. And at that same time, all of us said, it feels lighter in here. It feels, the air has changed, it's different. And so, and then the medium said, she's gone. So that was very interesting, because when we went back and watched the video, it's like, wow, look at that flash. I mean, it was like, and then everybody was, oh, it's so much lighter in here. So there was that air of difference for sure. You could definitely feel it in the moment. And that's really been my only personal experience with that.
So you think that people that feel that there is someone around that they don't want to be there, that they can have this discussion with them?
You mean like a spirit, like if there's somebody in the house that they don't want? Yeah, in my mind, and what I've found, you can set those boundaries. So for example, if we have a homeowner that, you know, has not faced anything that I would call evil or demonic, they just want the spirit gone. If you really just set those boundaries and say, this is my house, you know, I'd rather you leave. We've had some success with homeowners doing that. In some cases, we will call in a priest and they will bless the house, or a medium to sage the house, and that seems to work as well. You know, what we've also found is the human existence is such that everybody wants to be recognized. Nobody wants to go through life not being seen and not being heard. And we take that same approach with the spirits and the entities that we're trying to connect with. And I think that's why we see them or hear them so much, because they want to be recognized. They want their story told. And that's part of our job. You know, if we can go into a location, the first thing that we'll always say is, will you communicate with us so we can tell your story? And we think because we have that approach, we do get some interaction with spirits. We have that communication level with them. And so that has always been our mindset. They just want to be seen, to be heard, and respected for the life they lived on earth. And so if you have something in your home and you want it to leave, I don't think it's there maliciously. It just wants to be recognized. So once you do that and you ask it to leave and you set those boundaries that this is your house, a lot of the times there's been success in just saying that phrase. So that's really how we approach those type of investigations.
So what's the phrase that you would say?
Yeah, essentially, we would have a homeowner say, this is my home. I acknowledge that you're here. I acknowledge your presence. However, I'm not comfortable with you being here. I'm asking you to leave, you know, that sort of thing. Just along those lines, along those phrases. And again, you know, sometimes there's sage involved. We'll take some sage and kind of get rid of the energy in the house to shift it a little bit. So really that's the phraseology along those same lines. That's what we'll use.
Beautiful, beautiful. I had a wonderful experience. A Buddhist Lama, his name is Karma Lama. He was actually the Dalai Lama's man in charge of all of the ancient instruments, and also for raising funds for the orphans that had escaped out of Tibet into India. And so he asked me while he was here, he was going to do some house clearings, and he asked me specifically, you know, I want you to come and do this with me. So I was like, yeah, never done it before, but and so I went along, and it was really amazing because he was, you know, he had these little like sheets of paper, and he was talking in Tibetan the whole time, and he had, you know, those biscuits and little bits of alcohol and things, and he was doing this amazing ceremony. And it was really amazing because the connection was, I had no idea what he was saying in English, but he would turn around to ask me for something, and I already had it there. Like I knew exactly what was going on. It was really incredible. And he was basically talking to the spirits that were in the house, and he was like, you know, you're loved, you're da da da, and then they make the little feast for them here, and he says, come and enjoy it. And then he takes that feast and he takes them out of the front of the house and he puts them in the curb, and it sits there for 24 hours while they leave the house. And he asks them to, you know, you can't be here, you need to leave the house, and you're welcome to be out here or go to the light. It was really, really an interesting, so it's very aligned with your Christian beliefs about it then, and your own experience as well. So it's quite interesting that all of these different philosophies and distances have a very similar process for it.
You're absolutely right. And like I said, to us, it really goes back to that respect level. You know, even when we go and investigate prisons or jails, you know, they may have not lived the best life, but to us, they had a human existence, and we acknowledge that. So we'll take in things, not so much food like your friend did, but we'll take in items that we feel that they could connect with that will allow them to communicate with us. So for example, we were at Fort Mifflin in Philadelphia, and this was a Revolutionary War fort, and they had a prisoner. We verified this. There was a prisoner in a solitary confinement cell during the Revolutionary War. He was tried for treason. And so we said to ourselves, what would somebody in solitary confinement want? They'd want water, they want food. You know, we took in some cigarettes. And so we left all of that for him. And we said, this is for you. And we walked out, and we were doing some other things in the fort, and we just left it there for him. And we went back in. There was 2 investigators, myself and Cara, and we walked in, and I said, you know, we left you some water and we left you some cigarettes, and we got a male's voice saying thank you. On all of the equipment that we had recording, we captured a male voice saying thank you. And again, it goes back to, in our minds, it goes back to that acknowledgement factor. You know, we don't go in yelling, we don't go in provoking, we don't go in with anger. We go in with what I consider personally to be the right mindset, and that is to legitimately see if we can communicate and tell the story of those that have been left behind.
Beautiful. It's really beautiful. We have a energy in this house actually, and lots of visitors notice it when they come, and it's like a pillar of smoke that, that people walk into, and I had some girls staying here from the embassy, and I sort of walked into it, and I'm like, and they're going, oh, can you smell Mr. Smokey? And I'm like, oh my God, you guys smell it too? And they're like, yeah. And you know, I've had my grandfather visit me in the past, and people thought I was smoking because, you know, I thought the neighbors were smoking down by their fence away from the kids or something, because my house would start smelling of smoke. And then one night I was sort of fast asleep, and then I woke up, and he was sitting on the end of my bed, and he was like, so I couldn't see him. I see him, but I knew that he was here. Like, it felt solid, if that makes sense.
It does.
And he was there in the smell of the smoke, and he had a long conversation with me, and he said, I've come to, I wanted to apologize to you. He said, you know, the last time I saw you when you know, Zach was a baby, I was pretty rude to you. And he was. I saw him at a family reunion, and he'd come up to me and he'd gone, oh, hi, Angie, you know, how you going? What have you been up to in your life? And I said, oh, well, I'm about it. And he just walked away, right, mid-sentence. So it was a purposeful act, and he never spoke to me again. And anyway, he said, I wanted to apologize for that. He said, I didn't realize what I was doing, and I understand it's had a great effect on your life because, you know, family's not kind to you. And he said, he said, it was my own self-pity. He said, you know, when you were young, we were great friends. Like, we were really strong friends. And he said, and then you grew up and you had boyfriends in a life, and you sort of, you know, moved away from me. And he said, I was just angry about that. And he said, it was so childish. And he said, I wanted to apologize. And I'm like, oh, it's okay. And he goes, no, you need to understand. I understand how it's affected your heart and your soul. And and he said, look, yeah, and I've been talking to your son, you know, you're doing an amazing job with him. Like, you're so incredible. You're doing an amazing job with him. And, you know, we've had great talks, and, you know, he talked to me about my son and his future and my future. And he said that he's with my grandmother, and they had been separated for, you know, 20 to 30 years before he died. And he said, I'm with her, and she was a religious person. And he said, and I want you to know that she was dead right. Everything that she said is what we're doing here. And he said, and it's just really neat. We've got our baby that was still born. We're bringing him up together here. He said, it's just so exciting. So we had all these conversations, and then we're sort of sitting there, and then in the dark, my son come running in, and he was like 9, and he come running in the room in the dark, and I'm like, are you okay? And he hops in bed. He goes, can I hop in bed with you? And I'm like, sure. So he hops in, and he's sort of tucking himself down there, and he goes, oh, poor, is he here again? And I said, who? And he said, Poppy Joe. And I went,
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, he is. You know, and he just went off to sleep. So he could smell him too. And you know, Poppy Joe had said he'd spent lots of time with Zach. Oh, that's right. I said to Zach, I said, why don't you like him? He said, oh, he's always annoying me.
Oh.
Yeah. So, you know.
It's an amazing story.
Yeah. I completely understand where you come from, and you know, how these things are. And, you know, perhaps he was hanging around for a while, not knowing how to approach me, and managed to get me in my dream, because I do a lot of dream work. And I know that you do too. And, you know, maybe he was waiting for the time when he could sort of get my attention without me having my judgy hat on.
And you know, you're absolutely right. You know, when we sleep, we're the most vulnerable. You know, that's when we're the most open to receiving those type of signs. And if you have the ability to do that, or you want to do that, for lack of a better term, I do believe that things are revealed to you, because, you know, you're in that vulnerable position. You're in that open position. So I do believe in dreams very heavily. So absolutely. Yeah, I think you're right on that.
I asked, what was his name? He wrote the film The Cup, Kienzi Nobu. So him and I were having a conversation, and I asked him about dream work, and he said, what's that? And I said, well, dream work is, you know, like where you know, get these answers and you have conversations and you dream. And he looked at me and he said, well, who does that? And I said, I do. And he said, how long have you been doing that? And I said, since I was a kid. My grandmother told me to finish off my nightmares by going in and bringing cavalry in and getting the bad guys and stuff. And he said, so what do you do with it now? And I said, well, lots of answers. You know, if I go to sleep and I don't know engineering question, I'll wake up in the morning and it's there, or whatever. I have conversations with people, like, you know, the house I'm in now, I was shown it 2 years before I came in here, these sorts of things. And he said, okay, well, you call it dream work, we call it, I know he said something Tibetan, but he said, do you know that monks will train for 25 years solid to learn that skill? And
oh, wow.
And you guys are doing it out here in the Western world with no training. And I was like, yeah. So you're the same thing. So these guys do it, and they train to do it. Whereas, you know, it's a great understanding to know that we can actually do it naturally, right?
Yeah,
and
no,
absolutely.
absolutely.
It's just putting yourself into that open space and being open to these things, and not afraid of things that move in the night.
Exactly. And just to be open to receive that, you know, when we started doing these paranormal investigations, you know, it really honestly started as a girls trip. In 2013, my sisters and I decided we wanted to do something different, because we all live in different parts of the country, and we had a paranormal investigation opportunity at one of the most haunted locations in the country. So it really just started for us as a girls trip, but it has really evolved, at least for me, into this journey. You know, these things that I never really thought about before, these theories and you know, some of the ideas of what happens next. You know, I've really grown in that. I've always had my faith. I've always, again, had that Christian faith and relied on that, but it really has opened the door to other ideas of what happens next and where we're going to go. And to me, it's been eye-opening. It's also been very peaceful. You know, like we said before, everybody's afraid of death, but now death isn't as scary to me as it once was, just because of the entities that I've communicated with, or even my Nana and Granddaddy, that
Yes,
experience,
tell me about that story. You had
has been very peaceful.
That came in your dream, didn't it?
It absolutely did. So to kind of set the stage, my Nana and Granddaddy had built this house in the 50s here in Ocala. And so my dad was raised there, my uncles and aunts were raised there. And so they lived there, they're pretty much their entire lives. So in 1986, my grandfather ended up dying in the house. And the house is 2 stories, and there is, to get up to the second story, there was a circular staircase, and there's 2 rooms upstairs, the master bedroom and his office, where he spent a majority of his time. And so after he passed, my Nana continued to stay in that house. She remarried, but she continued to stay in the house until about 2010. And at that point, she wanted to move closer to her friends and stuff. So my family put her in an independent living house, so she could do her thing. So by 2016, she was 93, still spry as anything. And I have always been very close to my Nana. I'm named after her. So I'd always had that connection with her. So in 2016, I had a dream that Granddaddy came to me in this dream, and it was very specific. It was up on those top of the stairs that I mentioned. And he came out of his office, and he looked at me, and he kind of made this moan, and he turned and walked through the wall and left. And so for the first time I had it, it was frightening. So I woke up in a cold sweat. It was like a nightmare. And so I had it twice more, and same thing. But they were so vivid. Like I said, I can tell you how he smelled. I can tell you how he looked, what clothes he was wearing, the portraits on the wall behind him. I could tell you who was in them and how they were arranged. That's how vivid this dream was. So I was speaking to my mom about it, and I said, Granddaddy has come to me in this dream, and it's kind of frightening. And so just off the cuff, she said, ask him what he wants. And so the next time he came to me in the dream, which was the next night, I said, Granddaddy, what do you want? And he looked me dead in the eye, and he said, I'm waiting for your Nana. You're going to be getting a call soon. And then he walked out. And, when I woke up, it wasn't a nightmarish dream at that point. But when he woke up, I received the message, and, I really didn't think that much about it. It was, kind of earth shattering, of course, but I really didn't put 2 and 2 together at that point. So about 2 weeks later, my Nana was in an accident. She fell and broke her hip. And so she went into the hospital, had surgery, but she ended up getting MRSA and never really recovered. So she went into hospice for about 4 weeks. And during that time, we were talking to her about, death and all of that. And she would routinely say, your granddaddy, she was very lucid. She said, your granddaddy came to me last night. We danced. I was talking to my sisters who had passed years before. And so we had these conversations. And she obviously knew that I was a paranormal investigator, and we talked about stuff like that. And so the day that she died, and with permission from my family, about 3 hours after she passed, I looked at my sister and I said, I know where she's going. She's going back to that house. Now, when they moved her out of the house, they didn't sell it. It stayed in the family, but it basically became abandoned. So there was no power on at the house. There was nothing like that. So we went to the house, we went inside, we went upstairs to where the spot was for my dream. And we had 2, what we call in the paranormal world, K2 meters. And basically they're designed to measure energy. So if there's no energy, if there's no power in the house, theoretically, these things should not go off. And there's a light array from green to red. We had 2 meters. One was black and one was gray. So we're standing there, and we have this on video. So we're standing there outside the door where the dream occurred. And I said, Nana and Granddaddy, are you here? And the meters lit up to red. There's no energy in the house, so they shouldn't light up. So they lit up, and then they stopped. And I said, to confirm, can you just light up the black meter? Black meter goes off, gray meter does nothing. I said, one more time, can you go to the gray meter and not the black meter? Gray meter goes off, black meter does nothing. So through these series of conversations, we were to, what I believe, we communicated with Nana and Granddaddy, determined that they had met up there together and that they were moving on together. And to me, that was so peaceful, because it really solidifies my belief that, when we pass, we're met with somebody that we love, that knows, that will make that transition easier for us. And so just to validate this, we went back 2 weeks later, did the exact same experiment on the exact same spot with the exact same pieces of equipment, and got nothing. There was no blips on anything, any pieces of equipment. We didn't feel anything. I didn't feel like they were there. So in my mind, they're never going to be ghosts. They've ascended to whatever's next. And I'm not going to look for them again because I know that they're gone. I know that they're together and I know that they're happy. So for me, that was Granddaddy's unfinished business. He was waiting for Nana. And so now that they moved on, that to me is a very peaceful feeling. It really, you know, yeah, I shed tears at her funeral because of what I wouldn't have physically anymore. But I was also very happy because I knew that they had met up and they were moving on together.
That's so incredible. What an amazing story, and an actual physical validation, you know, of the energy there. Can you use the meters to have a conversation like grey is yes and black is no? Do you do that at all? Were you able to do that with your grandparents?
Yeah, we did that. That's exactly what we did with our grandparents. And we've used that successfully in what we feel is successfully in other locations. So, for example, we were at the Villisca Axe Murder House in Iowa, which is one of the most haunted locations in the US. And so we did that experiment. We think we were communicating with Sarah Moore, who was the mother in that situation. And again, we had 2 meters and we said, just go to the black one. And they're sitting side by side. So these meters, again, are designed to measure electricity. And when I take them around my house on a normal day, the things that I can get it to go to red are like a microwave on, or a hairdryer on, or the clothes dryer on. That's the only things that I can find in the physical world that will get that to go all the way to red. So we're talking about a lot of energy here. And so to have them side by side, maybe only separated by 7 or 8 inches, and for something to act upon it and just go to the black one and not the gray one, or vice versa, that to me is extremely compelling. I can't explain that. I can't explain why that happens. So I use that as very compelling evidence for what we do.
And so what was the conversation you had with Sarah Moore?
Am I
allowed to ask? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's on our video. So the Villisca Axe Murder House, this was the site of one of the most gruesome murders in the US in 1912. A family of 6 and then two guests, and they were children, were all hatcheted to death, essentially. So that murder was never solved. And Sarah Moore was the mother in the house. And so we were asking, so first we tried to validate that it was her. And, you know, we were saying, are you one of the Moore children? And we got nothing. Are you Mr. Moore? We didn't get anything. And then we said, are you Sarah Moore? And both of the meters lit up. And so we were saying, because we were actually outside on the porch rather than inside the house. So we were saying things like, are you afraid to go into the house? Can you light up the black meter if you are? And so it didn't light up. And so we said, are you comfortable going back into the house? If we go with you, can you light up the black meter? And it did. And so through that series of questions like that, like are your children still in the house? Is the murderer in the house? Do you know who murdered you? So through those series of questions, we were getting different responses on our K2 meters.
Wow. And so did you come up with any answers that were able to help?
So what we believe happened that night was, or the night of our investigation, was we were speaking with Sarah Moore. Her children, the spirits of her children, were still in the house. She did know who the murderer was, because there were several theories. We really didn't ascertain that through those series of questions. That he does come and visit occasionally, that she's not scared to go in the house when he is not there. But if the spirit of the murderer is there, then she comes outside. And that's why we were on the porch doing this communication back and forth. Wow.
That's so incredible. And was she saying that, so why is she still at the house? Why is she not ascended?
Yeah, so on that instance, we believe that the unfinished business is they haven't solved the case yet. You know, and so, like I said, there's been several theories, but it's one of the most, you know, unsolved cases, cold cases in US history. You've got somebody went in and literally used an axe to bludgeon to death 8 people, and 6 of them were children under the age of 10. So very gruesome. And so we believe that the unfinished business is they have not solved that case yet. So there has not been an answer. There has not been a resolution. Nobody's been held to justice for that crime.
And what year was it when it happened?
1912.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. So it's very highly likely that they will never find an answer, isn't it?
Correct. Yes, there's been a lot of speculation about that. So like I said, it's probably one of those things where they will be stuck in that time period until, you know, whatever, however the world ends or whatever. So they probably will be stuck and won't ascend until something happens.
So my sort of question here is why would they be like, why would they not be given the peace to move on? Like a lot of people that experience trauma, that meet people either under hypnosis, you know, when they come for trauma, or you know, people in their NDEs meet them. So many people, or mediums, meet them, and mediums say, look, they don't want to talk about it because it doesn't matter anymore. That person's gone. So why would that not happen in this case?
Honestly, I'm not 100% sure on that answer. You know, I do think that there have been some mediums in the past that have gone and said, you know, you are free to move to the light, and they just haven't done that. I do believe it's because it was an entire family. You know, I do believe that energy is there as well. So she is still looking after her kids. I think the Mr. Moore is looking after the entire family. And then you throw in the spirit of the murderer as well. I don't think he's in there the entire time. I do believe it's something that he kind of comes and goes. So honestly, I can't really speak as to why they haven't moved on. You know, I do believe it's that it falls into that unfinished business category. But I just don't know when the business will get finished, if that makes sense.
Yeah. So this is sort of pretty much the only one you've found that never was able to be resolved and move on, or?
No, we've actually had communications with several entities at multiple locations. We were at the Lizzie Borden house, which coincidentally is another house where 2 people were bludgeoned to death, and the murders were never solved. They did arrest Lizzie Borden for the murders, but she was acquitted of those crimes. But when we investigated there, again, no children and no men. There were 5 female investigators in the house, and we stayed for an entire night in the house. We stayed in the house. And we were capturing men's voices, children's laughing, children running, footsteps when we weren't on those floors. And so again, I do believe that in that instance, it is the spirit of Mr. Borden and his wife, Abby Borden, and that they just haven't moved on yet because, again, those murders haven't been solved. So that's a house that we've been to. Like I said, we've been to several prisons and jails where we've made contact, and I believe that falls into the category of they just don't want to move on. They're fully aware that they're dead. They're fully aware that there is something next, but they are very happy with where they're at because they don't want to face whatever that punishment is, perceived, or if there's a real punishment, a perceived punishment, whatever. They're perfectly fine staying right where they're at. So we've been very successful in prisons communicating with multiple entities. So then that's really kind of, you know, where our investigations go to some of these extents.
That's so interesting. And so when you have people that are here now, and they are afraid of becoming a ghost, and they're listening to this and thinking, oh my God, I might get stuck in my house. Do you know what I mean? What would you say to them?
Personally, I don't think that everybody becomes a ghost or a spirit. I don't think that everybody's energy stays around. Like I said, I don't think Nana and Granddaddy's did. I think that they moved on. You know, I've had other deaths in the family where I don't think they had unfinished business. I've tried to communicate with them and I've gotten nothing. So I don't believe that they're spirits. So I think a majority of us, when we pass, we will ascend to that next realm. Again, I'll call it heaven. We will ascend to that. But there are those instances where, because of certain reasons, we don't go immediately, or we're waiting for somebody else. You know, for example, if I were to pass and I'm waiting for my twin, you know, I might hang around just to annoy her or whatever. But there could be that reason. I think, you know, like I said, I do follow the Christian belief, but not very linearly, I give another word, not in a very literal scope. Thank you. So because there are certain aspects of it that I feel are a little bit different than my beliefs, because I don't think we all ascend immediately. Like I said, I think there's reasons why some of us stay or have the ability to stay, or we can ask to come back and say, you know, I want to be there, as in Granddaddy's case, I want to be there when Lottie passes because I want to help her transcend and move. And so it's comfortable. So long story short, I don't think the majority of people who are facing a terminal illness need to be afraid of being a ghost. You know, because I don't think, because otherwise we'd be seeing them everywhere. I just think there's certain elements in certain cases that lend itself to a spirit sticking around for some reason.
Yeah. And so from your understanding, your beliefs and your experiences, would you imagine that sometimes they could be doing whatever up there and popping back in? You know, like my grandfather, when he communicated with me, was basically, I popped down to see you. I'm having a great time up there bringing up my child with your grandmother, but I've popped down to see you because this has been eating at me.
Yeah, either that or they know that you need some type of resolution for that. So, for example, like I said before, I was extremely close with my Nana. I mean, you know, we would, even though I lived out of state, we would talk a couple times a week. Like I said, I'm named after her. So we always had that connection. And so I think that Granddaddy was supposed to come and talk to me to tell me, listen, it's going to be okay. I'm waiting for her. And I'm giving you this sign. So when you know that this is going to happen, when you realize what I'm telling you, you're going to be okay with that. And I was. You know, like I said, it crushed me when she went into hospice. It crushed me when she passed because I'm going to miss her. And I miss her. But I'm excited about how she was welcomed. You know, if that makes sense. I was excited that she didn't have to face that alone. And so again, and when she was in hospice, she was seeing her siblings that had passed before her. So we were actually doing some experiments in the hospice room. We had that K2 meter, as I said before, and we laid it by her bedside and we left it there for a couple hours and it did nothing. Not a thing, not a blip. And then we brought out a picture of her and her siblings. And I said, if you're in this picture, can you just make that meter light up? And it did. And so I know that she wasn't alone when she passed. And I think, to your point, that spirits can come back and communicate with us when we need them to, as a guide, as a, hey, listen, this is about to happen, but it's going to be okay type of a situation.
Beautiful. That's so incredible. Just actually really inspiring. I did an interview recently with a woman who her whole family experienced that with her mama in her active dying stages. That people were coming to visit her, even a you know, a well-loved family dog, Annie Bushaw, and it just it's so inspiring for people to think that they're not alone. You know, so many people. One of the big questions is, and you know, people come to me for hypnosis and for, you know, psychotherapy for you know, trauma release, and a lot of people have the trauma of, my dad was dying, I was there all the time, but I left to go home and get changed because I was so freaking exhausted, and he died and he was all alone, and they actually carry that. And I think that, you know, stories like yours just really put that in perspective of, you know, they're not alone. There's people with them. So you know, don't panic. And you know, when they go into hypnosis and they meet with their loved one down there, you know, they're so often told, all good. You know,
Yeah. And you're absolutely right. You know, because Nana was at hospice for so long, you know, as you probably know, most people that go into a hospice facility, it's 1 or 2 days, maybe a week. But Nana was there for about 4 weeks, as I said. So we built up a rapport with the nurses there and the physicians that were there. And in speaking with them, you know, during our time visiting with Nana, you really, and delving into what they've seen, they firmly believe to almost to a person that there is somebody that will welcome us. There will be somebody. They talked about most of their patients seeing somebody that they loved. So it was very common when we spoke to them. They said, oh yeah, that happens all of the time. And so again, it just really solidifies the fact in my mind that it will be a transition where we have somebody that we know, and you know, if it's not a family member, it's a loved one or an angel that will come back and say, or come and meet you and say, it's okay, we're moving on to whatever's next.
So how do you speak to the belief that I've sort of come to after, you know, reading and researching and listening to thousands of NDEs over the years, of it seems to be like, for example, people when they die in New Zealand or have NDEs, so many of them say they traveled to the top of the North Island and they were about to jump off, which is what is the historical ancestral journey that they believe you take. And then other people believe that, you know, they got up to the pearly gates and they met Jesus, and other people were just in blackness or in a hole, and then eventually, gradually, a light came through. You know, it seems to depend on their beliefs that they've had here of what they witnessed first. And to me, in my mind, it seems to come as what's going to make you feel most comfortable to start with, and then gradually you'll go into where you're meant to be.
Yeah, and I totally believe that. I do believe that our human existence, it really does shape how we exit, if that makes sense. You know, I'm really of the mindset that there are elements of every belief system, every religious belief system that are valid, that I can get behind. You know, like I said, I'm a Christian, but I follow tenets of the Catholic faith, of the Buddhist faith, of, you know, the Hindu faith. So in my mind, it really comes down to the fact that you try to live the best life that you can, and that's going to guide your experiences in life. So when you reach the end, you know, that experience is what is going to carry with you. So for example, the entities that we speak to or that we think we're communicating with in prisons and jails, as I said before, their life was not so great. You know, they went down the path of not so greatness. And so because of that when they met their end, their experience was, okay, because I believe that I'm going to reach some type of hell state or whatever, I'm just going to hang here. I'm not going to ascend. I'm just going to hang because I'm comfortable here. I know it here, and that's fine. So that lifestyle, if you will, really kind of dictated what was going to happen with them, or how they wanted to live after they passed. And so I believe that's the same thing with this. You know, if you have that belief system of, you know, you see a pearly gate, or that's what you believe, I think you're going to have that experience. But I think in the end, we're all going to again ascend to something that is much different than this human experience.
Yeah. So you, if they've been told that you're going to go to hell, then they would be fighting everything to go there, right?
That's what I personally believe. You know, agree. Again, I think and you know, and to me, the concept of hell is one that is very hard for me to wrap my head around. You know, again, if I profess to follow a God that is loving and you know, it wants the best for everybody on earth, the idea of an eternal damnation to me is something that it's a very hard concept for me. So when I think of what's next, I don't go there. I don't go to eternal damnation, but that's just me. So for if you know, if somebody is in a prison and they've been told that, you know, you're a murderer, and the only thing that's left for you after you pass is to go to this hell-like state, then why go? You know, why not just stay and be exactly, just be a spirit, you know, be a ghost. Yeah. So, you know, that's really where my head is on that topic. So I do believe, like I said, that's why we get a lot of activity in prisons. You know, doors slamming, we've seen shadow figures, we've heard footsteps, we've heard names, we've heard our names called, we've been touched. So I think that those spirits just stay there because of that.
That's incredible. And there was one other question I was going to ask you, because you're probably the perfect person to ask. So it's renowned here at this place where I live. And like we can see it now, I have a lot of interference. So I can see now that Zoom seems to be taking my audio out of sync again. It's not taking both of ours, but it's doing mine. I can be on, so I was on the phone to someone in my, in here, and the TV outside not only turned itself on, it also turned on the Telstra TV box. It went to apps, it picked Netflix, because you have to go through this process to do it. It went to apps, it picked Netflix. It went to my, my logged in, picked the program, and was watching a show, right? And I'm in here. I had a whole bunch of death doulas here. We had a meeting the other week, and we were here twice through the evening. The doorbell rang. There was no one there. It's an electric doorbell. None of my clocks work. They all have new batteries. I've given up the batteries. Watches don't work on me. It's I came out at 3 o'clock the other morning, so the gas heating here is turned off, right? Because I don't need it at the moment. We're in spring. And I sort of woke up, I need to go to the bathroom, so I came out at 2 in the morning. And the gas heating was going through the house. So I've come out another time, and the gas fireplace is running. And, like it's actually switched off at the wall. That's
wild.
What is this stuff? Am I cray-cray? But I have people that are here at the time, so I have lots of witnesses.
To me personally, and just speaking with you on this interview, I think that you're somebody who is very open, very receptive, very into signs, very into having a dialogue and a communication with spirits and with, for lack of a better term, ghosts. And so I think that they're using that to really communicate with you, to give you a sign that they're here. Either that or you've got a government agency hacking your house. But
oh my God!
No, like I said,
they might catch me on my secret planting methods in the garden.
We're just joking, people. It's okay. No, for me, we've like I said before, we use a lot of electronic equipment, and the theory is that spirits, because they're made up of energy, can manipulate that. One of the things that we use is called a spirit box, and essentially it's an AM/FM radio that's been modified to sweep through frequencies. So when you turn it on and you start sweeping, it just goes as it's running through all of these AM and FM frequencies. So theoretically, you should never hear a phrase because it's going so fast. You should not hear a phrase. But we were at an investigation at the Ma Barker house in Ocklawaha, Florida. And this is where 2 members of the Barker Karpus gang were killed by the FBI in 1935. And so when we went into that house, there's no power to the house. There's no electricity. There's no water. It sits vacant on its own in 40 acres of Central Florida forest. And so we set up in this room, and I turned that spirit box on, and I said, what happened in this room? And through the spirit box, it said, they murdered us, we the ones dead. And it was that entire phrase. And so to me, that's I can't explain that. I can't explain how that happened. But, we have different pieces of electronic equipment that we ask spirits to manipulate because their energy. And I think the same thing is happening in your house. They're trying to give you a sign. There's somebody there that has said, hey, I can manipulate this. I just need you to acknowledge that I'm here. So, you can do that. Just to say, hey, if you're still here, can you turn the TV back to whatever station you want, or, can you go to Google instead of Netflix or something like that?
It was outside. I wasn't even watching it. It was sort of out on the veranda. It's really weird. And so 2 years before I moved in here, I had a dream, and my son and I talked about this because he does dream work as well. I rang him up and I said, so I had a dream last night, and I described this house that I was in, and I said, it's really weird because my grandmother, who's dead, and my cousin Trudy, who's also died of breast cancer, they were both, I arrived at their house, and they're like, oh my God, so excited you're here, we're all excited, so everything is, you go and get ready and we'll go and organize the celebration. And so I said, and it was really weird because I didn't know this house, and I described it in detail to him, and I said, but I knew everything was. And so I went into the room and I changed, and I sort of came out the back, and I was looking across a field, and in a garage over there, like when they have a garage and they have those parties in the garage, and there's people sort of outside with food and drinks, and so I could see it over there, and they're all celebrating, and so I was actually standing there in the dream going, so am I going to die soon? Is that what's the celebration for? Anyway, it wasn't until I moved in here, and then I put 2 fridges on this wall here, that I was standing over by the cabinet over there, and I looked around it, and it was exactly as I saw it in my dream, because the cabinets made it all close in to exactly where it was. And I'm like, oh my God. And I went out there, and I met the neighbor 2 doors down, who's a psychic. and we were having a cup of tea out on her back garden, and I realized that that was the garage that I'd seen across the paddock. So there was no other houses in the stream. It was just sort of here and then connected to her garage, and they were all excited and preparing for me to come and join the celebration. So yeah, I do, like I work with a horse that's dead. I work with all sorts of different things, but it's really beautiful that they are here. I don't feel afraid of anything that's happening, but I'm just sort of I'm inquisitive as to the electrical phenomena. Like, do I need to pay an electrician to come in and check all the gas lines, or is it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. And, you know, it is interesting to try to find that balance. But I mean, obviously, if you're concerned, you would need to call an expert just to make sure. But, you know, like I said, we've found that they do manipulate electronic equipment. Battery drain is a big thing in investigations, because they'll use that to draw power. Or like I said, the K2s, or what we call the REM pod, or that spirit box, they'll communicate with us via those electronic devices, which is extremely interesting. Because again, if we're energy and we can manipulate that energy, then why not? Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was an amazing premonition that you had. Very cool.
Yeah, really cool. And, you know, like I feel very blessed. I feel that, you know, from the stream and things, I feel that there's a whole lot of spirits that have been waiting for me to come here and start doing this work. Even this podcast, it was like you know, I was told you have to do it. You just make it, they'll come. You know, this has to not be a house. There's no more flatmates. It needs to be a healing center. And I'm like, middle of COVID, and they're like, just make it, they'll come. And so I'm following instructions, because they actually, I've got to the age where they won't let me go anywhere else. Do you know what I mean?
And it is interesting, you know, there's been times I feel the same way. It's one of those things where if you're not on that path, it's made very clear that, hey, you're straying, you need to get back on this path. I mean, we're slamming this door over here. You need to start crawling.
That too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's really been that way my entire life. It's just one of those things where if it's not meant to be, it's like, it's a very hard boom, this door needs to close. You're not supposed to be here. You know, for example, and this is just a random example. I was moving out to Colorado, and in the job that I had was actually in aviation security. So I was going to buy a house because I thought, hey, longevity. And so I actually asked my boss, I said, you know, the company, I just want to make sure company's good, we're solid, everything's great, right? Yep, perfect. And I just had some queasiness about really signing on this house, but I went ahead and did it. So at 11 o'clock, I signed on this house, my first house. I was a homeowner. Hooray, hooray. 3 o'clock, we got the call that the company had just went bankrupt. And so it was like, okay, well, now what? And so it was one of those where I ended up, I was only out there for about a year or so. And after that, and sold the house and came back to Florida and helped my parents start a business down here. So it really is, you know, like I said, one of those things where it's been very clear during my entire life that if it's not meant to be, the door is shut very hard, and you just got to continue on this path. So, and that's, you know, that's what I kind of feel with what we're doing with Soul Sisters. It was never meant to be anything more than a girls trip, you know, in 2013. And now it's this thing that really consumes my life. And it's awesome because I've met some amazing people. I've done some very cool interviews and all of that, and have made some amazing friendships, and the experiences have just been, you know, pretty much mind blowing. And so it's just one of those things that I'm going to keep following it until, you know, something says it's not meant to be anymore.
Until something says that you can win lotto and here's an island. You've done good.
There you go. Everybody
I'm
listen,
waiting
please.
For that. Yeah, I keep waiting for that. You know, lotto numbers would be good, or I don't know, enough for feeding the animals would be nice.
There you go. You pick 3 numbers, I'll pick 3 numbers, and then we'll split it.
Sounds cool. Sounds cool. Look, thank you so much for your time here today, and it's really been enlightening. You're bringing a message to the world that no one gets to hear, because it's, do you know what I mean? It's not something that's spoken about, or it's something that's written and done so technically that people don't, you know, really get to comprehend what this phenomena is and how it works. And all of our movies and our programs make it either really really scary, or they make it really stupid. and
Yes.
that's annoying in itself. But bringing these conversations to the table and having real conversations is really amazing. And you're an earth angel.
Oh, well, thank you very
Here
much.
to bring this message out and to help those souls. Like, it's just really amazing. So if people weren't local to you, so say here in Australia, if someone had an issue, would they contact you, or do you have connections in other countries, or like, how does this, are you part of a group?
Well, I do have connections in other countries. So it is interesting, and kind of back to your point for just a few seconds. There is kind of that stigma. When you tell somebody that you're a paranormal investigator, they either look at you like you have two heads, or they want to tell you their ghost story. And popular media, television shows and movies and such, they've done a great job of highlighting that we're here, but they also do us a disservice, because that's not what we do. I mean, I've never run out of a location screaming. I've never, provoked or thrown a chair across the room and said, I'm not going to believe you're here until you hit me in the face or something like that. That's not what we do at all. We are very history driven. We love the historical narrative of the places that we go. And then we want to tell a compelling story of that, as well as paranormal activity that we find. So long story short, if somebody wants to contact us, absolutely do so. There's an entire network of paranormal investigators in the community that I know of, a lot in the United States. I have numerous contacts in Australia, New Zealand, England, Ireland, Germany. So we really do have that connection. It's kind of like we are a subculture, and to some extent of this subculture, but within that subculture, it is a great community of people. Again, those that want to help, those that are really history driven and want to know the story about what is coming next, to try to find those answers and really build on the portfolio of knowledge that is out there currently.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so I'll put your links up under the video in the end, and I'll run them over the intro as well.
Thank you.
The best place on Facebook is Soulsisters.
Soulsisters Paranormal. Yes, ma'am.
Soulsisters Paranormal. Beautiful. And YouTube, you have a YouTube channel where they can see all of these cool videos?
Yes, ma'am. That's under Soulsisters Paranormal as well. And then our website is www.soulsistersparanormal.com.
Thank you so very, very much for your time. It's just been absolutely amazing, Kris.
Thank you. I appreciate the time as well.
Thanks for listening. Anjii is available for clinical hypnotherapy, specializing in PTSD, trauma release, and active living and regression therapy via Zoom. To book or find out more about online workshops, you can contact her at anjieb@gmail.com or visit her Facebook page and YouTube channel, Anjii Bryers Biofield Therapy, or go to her website, canberraholisticcenter.com, spelled with a W. If you like this podcast, don't forget to review, like, and subscribe.